Hello and welcome to the Sunshine Cathedral. Thank you so much for joining us. We are entering the holiday season here at the Sunshine Cathedral, and we invite you to join us for all of our wonderful events throughout this holiday season. That would include our Christmas holiday concert that is coming up on December the 6th, and also, of course, our Christmas Eve services on December the 24th. We have a complete listing of other events and musical holiday traditions that will be happening at the Cathedral, and we invite you to visit our website at www.sunshinecathedral.org for all of our holiday listings. So now, we invite you to join us for our wonderful worship service here at the Sunshine Cathedral, and if you're in the Fort Lauderdale area, please do stop by and visit us on Sunday morning at 9 or 10:30 for worship. Now, let's join the exciting worship here at the Sunshine Cathedral.
Our first reading is a reading from the wisdom of Ralph Waldo Emerson. What lies behind you and what lies in front of you pales in comparison to what lies inside of you. In these human words, God's voice is heard.
Our second reading is a reading from the wisdom of Voltaire. Life is a shipwreck, but we must not forget to sing in the lifeboats. In these human words, God's voice is heard.
Reading from the Gospel according to Luke. Mary said, "My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Savior, who has looked with favor on me. Surely from now on all generations will call me blessed, for the Mighty One has done great things for me, and holy are God's names. Divine mercy is for those who revere holiness from generation to generation. God has shown strength and has scattered the arrogant in the thoughts of their hearts. God has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. God has filled the hungry with good things and sent away the rich empty. God has helped Israel in remembrance of divine mercy, according to the promise that was made to our ancestors. In these human words, God's voice is heard.
take a little time to think things over. I better read between the lines in case I need it when I'm older. Mountain I must climb feels like the world upon my shoulder. Through the clouds I see love shine. It keeps me warm as life grows colder. In my life there's been heartache and pain. I don't know if I can
I'd like to point out that there were exactly 2 people in the room who knew how to behave. You can't listen to a song like that seated. They had to stand, the babies. So learn from the children. You got to get up for some of these things. When I was preparing the message for today, this song was just stuck in my head. Foreigner's 1984 ballad was just stuck in my head. And since I couldn't get it out of my head, it has to go into yours. That's just how that works. P.S. 1984, I was a baby. This was my lullaby that my mother sang to me. P.S. the Shady Pines Choir behind me singing along. They're reminiscing back here, so it was all great. I want to know what love is. That is a perfect theme for Love Sunday, because we have these sort of sentimental feelings about, like, we feel like we ought to know what love is, but the word love has not been used in ways that help us understand it. You can't define a word with a word. You can't define a word by using that same word. So we're always trying to describe love, and in the description, so much is lost. And so people say, well, if you loved me, and then comes the manipulation. Well, that's not love. Or we grew up hearing about, love that we would miss out on if we didn't behave a certain way. Well, that's not love. That's a negotiation. That's just CYA, trying to take care of yourself or whatever. And so we've heard so much about love, but we've got these mixed messages about what it even is. And so we spend our lives trying to figure out what love is. Many of us have spent our lives sorting through these contradictory messages. Our parents told us they loved us, but not all parents knew how to show that love consistently. We are saying over and over lately, we are so blessed to have families in our congregation, families of multi-generations, and when someone will say, well, maybe we should create a playroom or a nursery, no, we want them here. We want what's happening right now. We want the children with us. They want us growing up with this positive message. We want them to know that we love them and need them from the beginning. And so, yes. So don't be jealous because you don't have the nerve to get up and look at the Christmas lights like the babies do. Just appreciate that they know what's important. If they got something to say, they say it. They won't let their voice be silenced. If they want to see something beautiful, they appreciate it. That is actually part of, they come here knowing how to express their needs. They come here loving themselves. And if we can tap back into what we came with, then our world can receive some healing. Some of our parents, though, they had it taught out of them or neglected out of them or beaten out of them or shamed out of them. So they didn't know how to give it to us. They were doing the best they could, but we didn't know that as children, and so we internalized some of the wrong messages, and then we pass on this stuff. We didn't know that our parents were overwhelmed and working hard and scared and trying to make ends meet and didn't have the greatest of parents themselves. And we didn't know any of that. We just knew that when Daddy came home tired from work, you better be quiet. Or if Mom had had a rough day, you better not make a big mess at the end of the day. Or if somebody was taking a nap, you had to be very quiet. Or if somebody told you something to do something, then you didn't want to question it a lot. You just better try to do it and do it right. And so our growing up sort of became a way of just trying to figure out how to be safe in the place where we were told we were loved. Now, that's just one scenario. Some of us had great parents. You're seeing great parenting in the room today. You're going to see some more at the offertory, by the way. Some people had great families, but not everybody. And we've got to be aware that some of us did not have good parenting models. And some of us didn't have parents at all. And maybe we thought we were burdens to those who did take care of us. Maybe we were told as much. Maybe we had to be caregivers ourselves when we weren't very old ourselves, and 11-year-old caregivers make a lot of mistakes. If we didn't feel loved or supported at home, we probably looked elsewhere to get our needs met. Maybe at school, we were hoping to get validated and appreciated, and there was that one teacher that we loved so much. And that teacher, as great as he or she was, didn't have just us to care for. There were all of these other children. And plus, that teacher's job wasn't to parent us, it was to teach us. And so we couldn't really get all of our needs met in that scenario. And even if we really bonded and loved that teacher, there would come that sad day in May where the year was over and we'd have to say goodbye to that teacher. In addition to those wonderful teachers, there were also the less wonderful teachers. Those who yelled and threatened and neglected and shamed. It felt like a repeat of home life for some of us. So if neither home nor school felt safe or nurturing for us, maybe we turned to religion. And for some of us, that was strike three. Many pugnacious preachers told us that God loved us, but would nevertheless abandon us to eternal damnation if we didn't follow certain rules or hold certain opinions. We could only be baptized if we followed these rules. We could only take communion if we belonged to this group. We could only be accepted if we would be claim to believe things, whether we could believe them or not. And there were certain people we couldn't even recognize as children of God. We were told some very strange things in the name of our loving God. God's love, it seemed, was conditional. We had to earn it. We had to be good enough for it, or God would withhold it, which doesn't seem much like love at all. That presentation of God, it wasn't gracious at all. Grace is unmerited favor. Grace is a gift that is freely given. You can't earn it and you can't lose it, but that's not how grace was presented to us. It was presented as if we had to purchase it by holding certain opinions, by behaving in certain ways. We were told that God loved us, but God was also willing to abandon us or withhold God's love if we didn't believe this thing or refrain from that thing. That's the message we got anyway. God's love was more frightening than comforting, and that left us wondering what love really was. If love didn't make us feel good about ourselves, if love didn't make us feel safe in our world, if love didn't make us feel as if God would be absolutely bereft without us, then what good was love? We already had enough fear and anxiety in our lives. We didn't need a little bit more and call it God. So if home and school and even church were places filled with fear and the possibility of rejection, how were we ever to know what real, healthy, unconditional love was? And then some of us, in addition to being in dysfunctional homes and frightening school environments and abusive churches, were also different. Were any of you different? I'm looking at you. I know the answer is yes. Some of us were different. Maybe we were same-gender loving or gender non-conforming. Bullies in the neighborhood made fun of us. Some of them got a rude surprise, though, when they realized that I carried a brick in my purse. And so I made fun of it once. Bullies in the neighborhood made fun of us. Preachers screamed vile pronouncements about us. Politicians legislated against us. We couldn't teach school or serve with honesty in the military. We couldn't adopt children or get married or become ordained in most churches. And in a few southern states, our very relationships were criminal. Expressing our love openly and honestly was condemned, discouraged, forbidden, even punished. Even now, when things are much better in many places, the work isn't over. Look how long we've waited for marriage equality. There's so much fear and self-loathing in the world that we even have to fight to be able to celebrate love. Does that make any sense? But that's how much healing is still needed in our world. A Course in Miracles teaches, only the self-accused condemn. Only the self-accused condemn. The people who told us we weren't lovable, that our love wasn't legitimate, that our lives weren't living miracles of divine love, they were expressing their own fears. They honestly believed themselves to be wretched sinners, worms of the dust, beggars unworthy to receive even the scraps that would fall from love's table. And if they had such fear and shame in their own lives, how could they ever affirm or appreciate those who seemed to be different from them? They couldn't even celebrate their own goodness. The best they could do is look for someone to feel superior to by comparison. And that kind of us and them, fear of the other, hatred of the other, that sort of being so insecure about ourselves that we have to demonize the other just to feel better about ourselves, we see what that has led to with rampant xenophobia, with rampant racism and misogyny in our world, with rampant homophobia, with every bit of progress being combated with an attempt to go way back into history, and with violence escalating on both sides of issues in a terrible way. Because when we don't know what love is, we can't share it. We can't teach what we don't know. We can't lead where we won't go, and we certainly can't give what we don't have. And so, just turn on the news tonight, and you will see the need to learn to love ourselves, to learn within ourselves what love is, so that we can live in the power of that love. Not knowing that they were lovable, they didn't love their neighbor. They didn't show love to their children. They didn't show love to their congregations. They didn't show love to their constituents. And so the wealthy looked down on the poor. And the citizen looked down on the immigrant. And the person in the dominant race looked down on the racial minority. And the person with male privilege tried to control women and their bodies. And the adult knocked around the kids. And the heterosexual demonized the gay or lesbian. Loving themselves so lesbian, so little, the best they could do is find someone to look down on. They loved themselves so little, all they could do is try to find someone they could dislike more. The people who caused us to wonder what love really was didn't know any more about it than we did. They couldn't teach it to us because they didn't know about it. They had never heard that they were God's miracle and not God's mistake. Not just that they were better than someone else because they weren't as bad as someone else. They had never heard the message of God's all-inclusive and unconditional love, that each of us is part and parcel of God, that God's love embraces us, holds us, flows through us, expresses as us, and will never let us go. They just never heard it. And so they couldn't see our goodness. And not seeing it, they couldn't tell us about it. No wonder so many of us had such drama in our relationships before we found that one person who could see past our issues and our baggage and our hang-ups and see the divine nature within us. Now, I'm not talking about me and Robert. I came okay. But some people, they needed a special partner to see their goodness. Robert's a saint. But no wonder some of us felt lonely, even in a relationship. No wonder some of us never really trusted love. No wonder that some of us didn't even trust the love of our friends, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And the idea of loving ourselves just seemed like airy-fairy New Age nonsense. Even now, when people hear, even in this room, they'll hear something about loving yourself, you can see eyes roll as if that was just a ridiculous concept. We had known so much pain that we truly believed love was an impossibility, and yet we longed to be loved, and we knew that we had love to give. We just didn't know how to tap into it, how to share it, how to acknowledge it. We wanted to know what love really was so we could learn to accept it and share it and be healed by it. The use of love's name in vain had wounded us so deeply. What we needed, what we deserved, what we passionately longed for was for it to be revealed in us and to us in such a pure and miraculous way that our hearts would be healed and our souls would be whole. And that's where today's gospel reading comes to our aid. We hear Blessed Mary saying today that her spirit rejoices in God who has granted her favor. Now that is a powerful affirmation, but not only is it a powerful affirmation, it shows us the point of using such affirmations. As an unwed, expectant teenage mother, there were very real challenges ahead for her. There would be stigma and vilification in her culture. There would likely be poverty, maybe even slave status. This was an illiterate peasant in an occupied territory. And she had become pregnant and apparently didn't know it until after the fact. And that adds another complication because you can't give consent after the fact. And so here is a person who has learned her life is going to be forever different, and she didn't even get a vote. This young, teenage, single mother, her life is changed forever. She could be bitter, she could be afraid, she could give up, but instead she chooses optimism, she chooses hope, she chooses courage. She says, "My spirit rejoices in God who has shown me favor." Is she crazy? Or is she courageous? Does she know this is what has happened? I can choose. I can't do anything about it, but I can choose how I respond to it. And I choose to believe that I am equal to whatever challenge is ahead of me. I choose to believe that I deserve to be hopeful. I choose to deserve that the future has infinite possibilities. And so I'm going to say it until I believe it, and I'm going to believe it until I experience it. For her, in the midst of uncertainty and potential danger, to imagine that there are blessings in her challenges, that there is hope in the midst of her difficulty, that there are possibilities greater than the situation at hand, is an act of great faith and courage. And as a woman in a patriarchal society, she is virtually without status anyway. And now her position is made more precarious. Still, she chooses optimism and claims to be blessed in spite of the difficulties in front of her. You know, we've inherited this story about how her conception was a good and miraculous thing. Good luck to her getting her neighbors to believe that story. And so she says, "I don't care what they say. I'm not responsible for what they say. I can't make them think or believe anything. I choose to say, I am blessed by God. I am favored by God. I will say what I need to hear because I have that power. That is God's gift to me." And so she loves herself enough to affirm herself, even if no one in the world will. We can't control every situation, but we can choose how we respond to the situations. Luke's Mary demonstrates the power we have to choose optimism. We have the ability to love ourselves through the difficulties in life, to praise our potential, to be gentle with ourselves, to encourage ourselves, and to speak words of blessing, even and maybe especially in the midst of trial and heartache. Luke has Mary demonstrate what Voltaire said: life is a shipwreck, at least sometimes, but we must not forget to sing in the lifeboats. We can't always navigate away from the rocks, but we can have hope and courage and peace and even joy, even if we hit the rocks. That is all the more possible. To salvage joy and hope and peace from the wreckage is even more possible when we believe that we are unconditionally loved and forever held by God. I rejoice in God who has shown me favor. That's the message of Love Sunday. You are loved. lovable, whole, innately perfect, made from the true love that is the foundation of the universe. You weren't saved from your depravity. You never had any. You were made in the image and likeness of God. God looks at all of creation, that includes you, and calls it very good. You are loved from the beginning. You are a divine idea in the mind of God. You are God's loving conception. You are God's miracle and not God's mistake. If that's hard for you to believe, it's just because you haven't heard it enough. But you will hear it every week at Sunshine Cathedral. And you can also hear it daily by doing what Mary did. Say it for yourself. Affirm that you are blessed. Declare that God will never abandon you. Choose to believe that God's love is all-inclusive, unconditional, and never-ending. And then with Mary we can say, my spirit rejoices in God. Of course it does, because God is love, and true love will never let us go. That's what love is. It's the divine reality that is the source and substance of your being. It is the universal and eternal presence that flows through you and holds you. It is the creative power that has given you the ability to affirm your own worth and believe in your own goodness. And this is the good news. Amen. There's more.
I want a hippopotamus for Christmas. Only a hippopotamus will do. Don't want a doll, no dinky tinker toy. I want a hippopotamus to play with and enjoy. I want a hippopotamus for Christmas. I don't think Santa Claus will mind you. He won't have to use a dirty chimney flue. Just bring him through the front door, that's an easy thing to do. I can see me now on Christmas morning, creeping down the stairs. Oh, what joy and what surprise when I open up my eyes and see a hippo hero standing there. I want a hippopotamus for Christmas. Only a hippopotamus will do. No crocodiles or rhinoceroses. I only like what? Hippopotamuses. And hippopotamuses like me too. From me to you because I love you. Amen.
Hello, I want to thank you for joining us for worship today here at the Sunshine Cathedral. Again, if you're ever in the Fort Lauderdale area, please stop by and worship with us on Sundays at 9 and 10:30 a.m. If you'd like to find out more about the Sunshine Cathedral, about our resources, or about our books published by our senior pastor, the Reverend Dr. Durrell Watkins, or if you'd like to make a donation to the Sunshine Cathedral, please visit us at www.sunshinecathedral.org. Until the next time, may God continue to richly bless you on your journey.